Meet ODESZA, the masters of LFO-driven deep house, creating a sound that's both uplifting and mesmerizing. Yo guys, I'm Niek from the Produce School and welcome back to a brand new video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a track like ODESZA. Before the video starts, here's what the project will sound like. Let's now start by deconstructing all the elements in the track. First of all, the BPM is set to 118, which is relatively slow nowadays, but it works really well with these LFO driven pads that really mark the sound of ODESZA. That's also the first thing that we're going to dive into, and that is the LFO stutter kind of synth, which we have right here. I will first play it soloed, which sounds like this. The sound consists out of 3 layers, but the stutter effect comes from an external plugin in the mixer rack. So if I would turn off all the effects in the mixer track, it would sound like this. So I will walk you through the pads individually, and the first one is from our pack Omnia, which is more of a analog sounding saw pad. Then we have the second layer, which is just a square wave, really simple, with some Juno 106 chorus. Just adds that noisy texture to the layer. And then we have this diva patch called synth class, which is from one of our diva banks, and it sounds like this. It's mostly to fill up a bit of the higher part of the layer. So together they are all linked to one mix track, which we have right here, and it's called chords. Let me turn back on all the effects. Let's start by demonstrating how I did the LFO kind of effect, because there are multiple ways to do this. You could do it in your serum patch, but that would make it much harder to layer your sound. So I thought it would be easier and it gives you more control if you add a similar effect, but just do it afterwards on your layer. And for that, I'm using this Shaper Box plugin, which is a really cool plugin. As you can see here, it basically gives you a lot of shapers and tools such as a sidechain or a panning shaper. And it makes it really easy to just shape the sound in whatever way you would like it. And in this case, we're using a filter to do this. So it's basically the same as linking an LFO to your serum cutoff, but now we're doing it in a plugin. So I selected the warm low pass filter, which is 12 dB, and then I created this kind of shape. Then in the bottom left of the plugin you see this knob right here, and here you can set the length of the LFO, such as triplets or just a straight rhythm. But in this case we want it to have a free rhythm, so you select Hertz millisecond right here. And then this is the knob that will determine the speed. So you want to automate that, and that's what I did right here. So that's this automation is modulating the hertz right here, and that gives this stuttery effect as it goes from fast to slower throughout 2 bars. And if I would make this unique, you could play around with the rhythm. This is a really simple rhythm that they basically have used already, but you can just play around with it. and it's a really nice effect. You can play around here with the cutoff to move the shape up. But a bit more of a heavily filtered sound is what we want right now. There are also some more plugins on the bus. First of all, we have this Effector Effects module, and I'm using it for a flanger sound, which is just really simple. Then we have an OTT, which is on 30% depth, and I drag down the time a little bit. Then an Echo Boy for a really short 1/8 delay with the feedback all the way to the left, just to like widen up the sound a little bit. And then a short reverb with just 1 second of decay. Individually on the pads, I just did some EQing and stereo separation. Next up on the bus, I added an EQ, which is functioning as a filter. And I automated the high end, which is filtered with this automation right here, which creates that like glitchy kind of effect. Lastly, I added a panomatic, and the panomatic is set to panning mode. It basically automatically pans the sound from the left to the right, but I automated the amount. It just starts panning at the end of every 2 bars, so like this. So the sound is somewhat complex, but you can play around with all these techniques I showed you and get some really cool results. For the chord MIDI, it's important that you layer multiple notes on different octaves to really get that full and enriched sound. And it's pretty easy to do this when you just have a simple set of chords and just start adding some notes on top of everything until you have something that sounds full and that sounds good. Next up, these LFO chords are layered with a bass, and the bass is really simplistic and it sounds like this. As you can see, it just follows the bass with an interesting rhythm. At the end of every 2 bars, I shortened the sound so it feels like it's stopping. And it just enhances the rhythm that we added with the LFO automation. The sound itself is from our pack Omnia, and it's using a Moog saw wavetable and a short envelope 1 linked to an MGLO 18 filter. Really simple and straightforward, but it just works well. Next up, there are 2 pads that function as support layer, playing the simple chords as well. It's once again a Diva patch from our sample pack. And for the mixing, it's pretty straightforward. A low cut on this one. This one is really interesting actually. We got this one a while ago and it works really good for these kind of sounds. It's track spacer. I can basically duck the signal based on the signal of another sound. So in this case, we sidechain the LFO stutter kind of pad to this sound. And then it will automatically duck this when the LFO chords are playing, which just leaves a bit more room for the main LFO chords to play. And when they get less loud in volume, the pads come back up a little bit as well. And it visualizes it pretty well, as you can see right here. And then the second pad is also from Diva, and I changed the MIDI a little bit by adding some higher notes. And what's interesting is this frequency automation right here, which at the end of every 2 bars opens up the cutoff of the sound, which you also hear pretty well. Simply add some more body to the sound and makes it more interesting, add some movement and so on. Also the same trick with using track spacer, which I would really recommend to check out. Then we have a strummed piano. First of all, it's important to notice that I manipulated the MIDI for this a little bit by using the strum tool and by using the randomized velocity tool. as well as some quantization. So I try to make it feel a bit more humanized, and now it sounds like this. And a key part of the sound is also the processing. As you can see here, there's an EQ boosting some of the high mids and getting rid of some of the low mids, as they are already pretty occupied by the pads and the LFO chords. Then there is this RC20, which really gives that dusty vinyl sound to the pad, which is really important in this context. And then there's some slight reverb with Valhalla Vintage Verb. And that's pretty much it. Then in the second part of the drop, I add a little top melody with a diva as well, which is a lead from our new pack Spectrum. And it sounds like this. I left on the built-in effects and added a bit of a low cut, and that's pretty much it. The melody I just came up with simply in the full context, and with the chords it's really easy to just come up with something by ear. So all together in the drop, without any drums or effects, they sound like this together. So let's now move on to the drums and the FX, and after that I will talk a little bit more about the arrangement. For the drums I kept it really simple, as the synths are already occupying a lot of space, because those synth pads are just really full sounding sounds. So we have a punchy kick, which sounds like this, layered with a soft kind of clap with a little bit of EQing on it. Just a little duck in the high end and a bit of reverb. And a percussion. Next there are some white noise effects like this. And a very important element are these ambience effects, which are from Omnia and some other sample packs. And all together that gives you the drop. The breakdown basically is a stripped down version with the piano and a vocal as main element, and the rest of the elements in there are also all just taken from what I have in the drop. So nothing special really going on right there. I will now show you guys the vocal, and the vocal is from Splice. It's a pretty soulful kind of vocal, which I pitched down 4 octaves, and I added some delay and processing to it. So a low cut and some ping pong delay to make it a bit more white, and then there's a soothe to get rid of some harsh like resonant frequencies. The vocal fits pretty nice, and soloed it sounds like this.
Baby, can't you hear my call? Is it loud enough? You don't wanna fall. You know I need you. I can't do it on my own.
And then before the drop, there is this part where the LFO chords are just playing solo, which creates a really huge sounding effect. And for that, there's also a sustained bass layered underneath it, which is basically the same bass as we use in the drop. But then I went into Serum and just sustained it a little bit. Well, in this case, I made the decay really long, and that sounds like this. Together layered with an impact, it creates a lot of impact. So like this. Then you have those chords filling up the rest on top. Lastly, there are some simple automations like some endless smile and some EQing. And that's basically it for this project. So I will now play you guys the full end result.
Baby, can't you hear my call? Is it loud enough? You don't wanna fall. You know I need you. I can't do it on my own. Baby, can't you hear my call? Is it loud enough? You don't wanna fall. You know I need you. I can't do it on my own.
So all the sounds that I used in this video are from our sample packs, which you can find in the link in the description. If you have any questions or suggestions about the project, make sure to leave a comment down below. And for now, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I see you guys in the next video.
Can't forget.